The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third Thursday webinar. This is Margot Hoffman with the Partnership for Excellence. And these webinars are put on by the Partnership for Excellence, the Southwest Alliance for Performance Excellence, and Oklahoma Quality. And we have a new host that has joined us, and that's Quality New Mexico. So in the coming months, you will see some of our presenters from New Mexico, which is fantastic. So we welcome the folks and partners from Quality New Mexico with us. Our presenter today is Allison Walden with the Tulsa Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I will be introducing Allison in a little bit here. A couple things before we get started. I'm going to do a few announcements. And then I will introduce our speaker who will present today's session. You will be able to ask questions during the presentation, and also we'll provide a time after the end of the presentation for questions. And then we'll be introducing our next webinar. Before we get started, the way you can ask questions, there's two options. One, you can raise your hand, and I can unmute your microphone and you can ask Allison your question. And the second way is within the control panel, there's a box where you can type in questions and you can type them in there. So anytime you have a question, you can either raise your hand or type the question in, and the next time there's a good time for a break, we'll have Allison answer that question. We always like to inform folks of any upcoming events we have in our state programs. There's currently no events on the calendar with the Oklahoma and the SWAY program, but here's the link to go and look at their events if you are interested. And then there's also the link for Quality New Mexico. I know they do weekly radio shows, and the schedule is there. The Partnership for Excellence has a couple things coming up. We have our application writing workshop in June, and then we also have a save the date here for our Quest for Success conference in September. And then the National Baldrige program also has their National Quest for Excellence conference coming up at the end of March, and registration is now open for that. We always like to thank our members. We are 501(c)(3) organizations, and it's the support of our members that help us do the things that we do. So a big thank you goes out to all of our organizational members and partners. I'd now like to introduce our presenter. We are very excited to have Allison Walden with us, who is going to be sharing some of the best practices for customer engagement that they've learned from working with their members. And Allison is the Vice President of Resource Development with the Tulsa Regional Chamber of Commerce. And she guides and executes the organization's comprehensive development plan and its investment relations. She manages a team of 12 people who are responsible for generating $11 million of the Chamber's annual revenue. And that comes from memberships, sponsorships, and then public and private funding initiatives. She oversees the campaign. She has overseen the campaign's garnering of more than $60 million in revenue during her tenure. She serves on the board of the Oklahoma Quality Foundation and is a trained state examiner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison. And so if you would just be patient for a second while we change presenters and let Allison get started.
All right, everybody, good morning, or if it is morning where you are, it's still morning here in Oklahoma. It is 10 o'clock Central Time on a bit of a dreary day today, so I'm very excited to be able to talk about something so energizing to me and the Chamber as customer engagement. We are a 501c6 organization and also encompass several 501c3s inside of our organization as well. So that is the lens in which I'm going to be talking to you today, is from a nonprofit perspective. But I do hope that based on some of the tangible takeaways and processes that I may mention today, that it'll spark some ideas or innovation for your own organizations as you continue on your quality journey. So thank you in advance for your time, and I look forward to your engagement and questions as appropriate as we go through. So I'm going to share through this presentation today a little bit more about the Tulsa Regional Chamber as an organization, a little bit more about our quality journey, and some of the inroads that we've made for customer engagement. We feel very proud of our results at this point, but as you know, the quality journey is not an end destination, it's truly a continuum, and we have plenty still to work on as we pursue excellence. So, and I also, as I mentioned before, look forward to that Q&A. As I work here to advance my first slide, let's see if I can get this to work. My apologies. Here we are. Our quality journey started in 2012. And if your quality journey was anything like ours at the Chamber, before we started, we were feeling really good about ourselves. We were in a good place as an organization. We were the only chamber statewide and still hold this title of the only national accreditation organization in several layers. So we're a nationally accredited chamber at the highest level. We have a nationally accredited economic development corporation, which helps companies grow and retain jobs. We're an accredited destination marketing organization, which means that we have a tourism or a visitors bureau where we help recruit tourists to Tulsa. And then we have an accredited film, music, arts, and culture office, which means that we work on incentives for filmmakers and try to draw culture, art, music, and film projects to the region. You may be aware of the Flower Moon book that's going to be converted to a movie soon. It's going to be filmed here in Oklahoma with Leonardo DiCaprio as an example. That's a project that we might work on. And so we have an office that's accredited here for issues like that. We're also a 3-time Chamber of the Year winner. We were coming off of the heels just 2 years before of our most recent Chamber of the Year win. And so as chambers stacked up, we felt like we were top of the pile. We'd also had some very significant growth in our organization. We had 50 employees just a few years before and had grown to 70, particularly because we also had experienced a growth in members, who we call our customers. We have 2,100. And then we did have, and we still do have, one of the largest budgets in the chamber industry at the time, around 12 million. So all of those things were fabulous and wonderful things for us, but we were looking for what was next. What could really take our organization to the next level? And frankly, with that growth came new challenges. We had just hired an HR manager back in 2000, maybe 2011. We had not had a systematic HR professional before that time. We were starting to see cracks in our mission, vision, and values, and our staff truly understanding what those things meant and how those played out in their daily work. And we were also seeing some cracks in our customer management processes when you have that many new employees and are continually growing members. So for all of our credentials and all of our accolades, we were starting to see the need not only for a new challenge, but for a new level of excellence when it came to executing our business. The Chamber here in Tulsa is very fortunate because we have several national Baldrige winners as members of our organization and as local examples. The Jinx Public Schools is a national winner. Mesa is a several-time national winner. And Bama Companies is also a previous national winner. So we started looking into what a quality journey might look like for us with some of those members and some of those companies as our standard. What we did first is we looked toward what were those big rocks that we could work on. And as with any quality journey, it starts at the core or at the beginning with our mission. So what we found is, we've had the same mission for a long time. Our organization was founded in 1903, and that's a big deal. But why are we here? So we took some time at the very beginning of our quality journey in 2012 to truly reset on our mission. The things that really stood out to us in our mission is that we are the business-driven leadership organization. So what that means is it's the Chamber's job to convene the business community, to convene business leaders, and drive the community forward with that leadership. And why are we driving the community forward? We want to improve the quality of community life here in Tulsa. Well, I'm sure that you all represent nonprofits or sit on boards of nonprofits that also espouse to drive the quality of community life. So we believe that it's not good enough just to say as the Chamber that we want to improve things. We needed to be very specific on how we are going to improve the quality of community life. And so the last part of our mission statement is also very important. The reason why the Chamber exists, and why we would argue many chambers exist, is to drive the development of regional economic prosperity. So that's what makes our nonprofit, and that's what we tell our employees and our customers, different than a social service organization or another nonprofit here in Tulsa. The Tulsa Chamber is uniquely positioned to leverage the business community to drive regional economic prosperity. So while other nonprofits might be trying to help individuals or organizations improve their quality of community life in different ways, we're focused truly on growing the economy as a way to make Tulsa a better place. And so once we were able to really nail down that mission statement and truly allow our employees and our customers to understand that, we realized that we had some work to do on our vision statement as well. In fact, we actually didn't even have one. And so in 2013, as part of our quality journey, as you know, that's one of the questions you have to answer very early on in your organizational profile. It's like, why are we even executing this mission in the first place? What's the end game? When do we know that we can pack up our bags and go home because we have arrived? And so we did a very comprehensive focus group process internally with staff and volunteers, and debated wording and things of that nature. And in 2013, arrived at a vision statement that still holds and helps guide our work. And so our vision statement is that the Tulsa region is recognized as a global leader in individual and economic prosperity. The word global there is very important, and we wanted it to be lofty because when will we know that Tulsa has arrived in economic prosperity? When people all over the country, from Amsterdam to Austin, know that Tulsa is a place where business and people can thrive. So those are the guiding principles of our work. And through the early stages of our Baldrige process, we're very pivotal in redirecting our work and our resources and the focus of our staff. So the first iteration of our Baldrige journey was truly just about defining and redefining why we do business. And that was a pivotal point for us and something that we are very, very grateful for. So as we move forward, we also realized that we didn't have core values that really spoke to our customers and spoke to our staff. And so we went through a very similar process in 2014 to derive new core values. And so I won't spend a lot of time here. I'm sure a lot of these words look familiar to you and may even be values that you leverage as well. But these have truly been game changers for us in that not only are they on a piece of paper when you walk by our lobby or on a poster, they're embedded into our staff evaluations, they're in our conference rooms, and so we're challenging ourselves all the time. Are we espousing these values? Does our work reflect these values? And can our customers communicate these values back to us as things that they see in us and in our work? So now that I've gotten the kind of core out of the way, I wanted to share a little bit more about what we do and how we measure our success. Because if we can't share that with customers, we can't gauge their engagement and their satisfaction. So what we realized very early on in our Baldrige process, our quality journey, is that our strategic plan was way too broad, very fuzzy, maybe not measurable, and certainly too difficult to accomplish in 1 year, let alone 3 to 5 years. So what we did is we boiled things down into a dashboard that really focused on the 4 key strategic areas of our work. As you'll see on the left side here, we have 2 divisions or focus areas at the Chamber that truly speak to the end game of economic prosperity. The first is economic development. The way we measure our success in economic development year to year is through the creation of jobs. Well, you might ask, I mean, the Chamber of Commerce doesn't create jobs, does it? No, absolutely not. But we support companies that do. And so we put our hands on projects and support companies to execute expansion or relocation projects that drive jobs to our community. And we count every job that we help support that lands here in Tulsa. So, for example, this year in 2020, our goal is to help companies create 4,500 jobs through business retention and expansion programs. So whether it's connecting companies to incentives or actively going to a corporate headquarters in New York and recruiting a company here for back office space or a headquarters relocation, that's the work of our chamber on a daily basis. And that's how we measure it. That's one of our 2 KPIs is jobs. The second KPI is room nights. So as many of your communities might also do, you receive a portion of lodging tax or hotel payments that every visitor makes in your community. So if next time you go to a hotel and you check out, look at the bottom of the bill, you'll see several taxes there. One of those line items for taxes goes directly back to your tourism division, whether it's a division of the city or perhaps a division of a visitors bureau or a chamber. And so it's the end game of whatever that entity is in your community to drive more people to more hotels in order to generate economic wealth or prosperity in the region. And a portion of that money comes back to the tourism bureau here in Tulsa in order to continue that great work. So every year we have a goal of attaining a specific number of room nights. This year, for example, 170,000 is our goal. We do that by recruiting events to town. We do that by recruiting conferences to town. Most recently, you might have heard that BMX, the Olympic bicycle sport, is being relocated here in Tulsa, and their national championship over Thanksgiving will continue to be held here in Tulsa as it has been for the last decade. So that's an example of how an event can draw an incredible amount of room nights to a community, very similar to something like NCAA basketball or the Super Bowl might do for a community like Atlanta or Indianapolis. So I won't spend tons of time on the rest of this slide, but we do have a very proactive government affairs division and a community development division that focuses on diversity and young professionals. But the reality is the only reason that those divisions exist is to support processes that at the end drive these 2 KPIs of job creation and hotel stays, or what we would call room nights. So when we talk to our customers, it's very important that they understand not only what they might be getting out of the chamber personally for their business, but how our efforts are driving economic prosperity and wealth to the overall community. So what's our product? Every business has a product. Our product is a little bit different perhaps than maybe some of yours. Our Tulsa region is the product. So for those maybe not so familiar with Oklahoma, I've shared just geographically where Tulsa sits in northeastern Oklahoma with its green rolling hills and beautiful topography, as well as our MSA area, which encompasses several counties as well as several tribal nations. So we have very robust partnerships with our regional communities and regional chambers, as well as tribal nations that help us in our business recruitment work, as well as our tourism work. So every day we wake up to sell the Tulsa region, not only to our own citizens, but to people outside of the region who are making decisions every day on where to visit, where to hold their meetings and events, and where to locate or expand their businesses. So just to give you some visuals, it doesn't look so beautiful out there today in this rainy, dreary weather, but on a nice, clear day, this is what Tulsa is all about. We have a thriving downtown community, some wonderful green spaces, and you may have heard about the Gathering Place, which opened a few years ago as the largest private investment park in the country. So if you have not made it to Oklahoma to see our beautiful city, certainly I'll put in a shameless plug there for Tulsa. So back to our quality journey, now that you know a little bit more about us. We were experiencing, as I mentioned, in addition to just some of the growing pains of being a successful organization, when we really looked at our customers, we also heard a bit of a sad story. They said, look, you've done an incredible job raising money. You've done an incredible job recruiting members. You have over 2,100 and a budget of 12 million, but maybe you've been too good at raising money, because it seems like the only time we hear from you is when you have your hand out and you're asking for more dollars. And while you're doing great work, we're not feeling a lot of love from you. So that was never a good thing to hear. We were hearing that members were a little fatigued from a donor perspective. Our retention numbers were fair, but they weren't excellent. And the chamber, in all of the work that it does and how broad of an organization it does, our value proposition was getting lost. And I'm sure that's something that you can resonate with. Absolutely. You know, what's the advantage of engaging with the chamber, and what's the end game of what outcomes you're truly driving? And so we needed to get back to the core of that. And quite frankly, we had a lack of process. We didn't have a lot of processes in our organization overall. We certainly didn't have very much process around our customer acquisition and our customer engagement. So in the next few slides, I'm going to dig in a little bit more to what our customers look like and what challenges we identified in understanding our customer that also was able to lead to ways in which we were better able to engage them. So who are our customers? If Tulsa is our product, who are our customers? And we had some in-depth conversations about that. At the end of the day, our chamber members, those who invest dollars in us, are our customers. But what we found is that for years and years and years, we were talking to all of our customers the same way. We truly had not segmented our customers in a meaningful way. And so we were losing opportunities to speak truly to the advantage that they wanted to gain through chamber membership. Not all companies join or engage with the chamber for similar reasons. And so what we did is we employed a consulting firm who specializes in chamber work as well as economic development to truly help us sit down and segment our customers into a meaningful way. These segments are not new. They are segments that chambers overall conceptually understand potentially about their members. However, we are one of the first chambers to actually assign a quadrant or a customer segment to their members and then execute it throughout their entire prospecting, cultivation, and engagement process. So while these concepts are not new, we are one of the first chambers to truly leverage these concepts and tie them very tactically to the everyday work that we do of acquiring and retaining customers. So what we did is we realized that we had 2,100 members. We had these overall customer segments identified that we thought were going to fit our membership, but we had no way of taking these 2,100 members and then assigning them into quadrants as a starting point. So that's why we deployed our a consultant that we were very familiar with doing other work for us, and through some systematic research, they were able to assign a primary quadrant or customer segment to each of our 2,100 members as a baseline. So we did that in 2016, and it was very enlightening to see what those quadrants ended up forming as a baseline. And I'll show you kind of how that played out for us in just a second. So these quadrants I won't spend a lot of time explaining, but I want to share from left to right just some key themes. So these are the primary ways that a customer will interface with our organization. Maybe they want to meet potential customers. That's our build segment. Maybe they want to access free resources and gain visibility for their business. That's an access member. Maybe they want to get something done through the chamber and advocate for a certain policy position or drive diversity and inclusion principles in the business community. That's an advocate. or maybe they just want to give back to the community and feel like the chamber is doing great things and they want to be part of that momentum. That's an invest member. So as you see from left to right, those advantages that a company is trying to gain through being a member of the chamber truly spans from very transactional and very inward focused to very transformational and very outward focused. And so that'll continue to be a theme that we see throughout our customer engagement process, is identifying members where they are. Are they transactional? Are they trying to get something from the chamber like sales or connections? Or are they transformational and they're truly trying to leverage the chamber to get something done or accomplished, perhaps their reputation, or perhaps move the community forward from a legislative perspective? That's the transformational side. So you'll see that play out there, but this core segmentation process has become very, very key in our customer engagement process, because it allows us to identify where the customer is coming from, and then identify, where their growth potential is in our organization more long term. So this is how this transactional transformational concept plays out for us from a funding perspective, because you have to remember from the seat that I sit, I'm in a sales role here at the chamber, and so I'm always looking at, how can we generate revenue from our customers, and how can I make them more satisfied and more engaged. So we have a funding triangle here at the chamber that truly helps us identify where our money is coming from. At the core of our business, every company is typically a member first. So they join it to gain one of those 4 advantages. And as you can see, we have a little more than 2,000 members representing, a certain level of investment and overall what our retention rate is for each of these buckets. Our sponsors, as you can see, once you're invested at a member at a base level, you can choose to upgrade your partnership and sponsor an event for visibility. You can see that we generate even more money from our sponsors, but there are much fewer of them. So it's kind of, as you see this triangle, it's a little bit of our 80-20 rule. I'm sure you have very similar 80-20 examples in your business. So those memberships and sponsorships, they're overall the most transactional investment opportunities that we have. You're contributing something to the chamber to gain an advantage for yourself or for your business, and you're seeing those outcomes. The third and fourth tier of the triangle there, the Tulsa's Future investors and the momentum investors, those are truly our transformational investors. They're not necessarily investing in the chamber in order to get an outcome for themselves. They're truly bought into that transformational ideology, and they want to see the community propel forward with jobs and tourism in a way that maybe they'll see in their lifetime of investment, but maybe they're paying it forward for future generations as they invest in things like downtown development or river development or diversity and inclusion, those things that take a longer time to cultivate and execute. So as you can see, there are 199 investors for Tulsa's Future and 60 investors for Momentum, and you can also see the millions of dollars there. So it just continues to propel forward with fewer investors investing larger amount of dollars toward those outcomes. So when you look at where your funding is coming from and where your customers are, this is another way that we segment where the money is coming from and who cares about certain things. And as you can see, the data can provide you with some pretty telling results on where your investment is coming from and which customer segments are very important to pay attention to. So here's another way to segment it that was very eye-opening for us as well. I mentioned those 4 quadrants. So in addition to having our investment triangle of where people invest in buckets, we also have done some work on which quadrants invest the most or the least with us, because it's very difficult to resource programs or initiatives in a nonprofit without truly understanding where the revenue is coming from and from whom. So as you can see, it's very interesting to see that the majority of our investment is coming from those advocate and invest members, those transformational members above the waterline, for example, and then those more transactional members that are looking for customers and visibility and resources below the waterline, while a significant amount of members aren't investing as many significant dollars. So this doesn't mean that we've abandoned strategies to make any of these quadrants less satisfied or more satisfied. We still have strategies for all 4 of them, but this helps us from over-resourcing programs that may not drive the most revenue. And it also gives us opportunities to look at each of these quadrants and make sure that we're investing enough resources in time in making them satisfied through programs and services and communication. So now to the processes. I know in quality world, we love a good graphic, and I am in love with this one. This is a way that we depict our customer engagement process. So in the membership world, everyone comes in, as I mentioned, as a member first, and then as they're cultivated, onboarded, and engaged through our organization through year 1, year 2, and beyond, they may upgrade their investment. They may choose to participate more or less on committees or task forces. And so, you know, the trajectory and life cycle of a member overall can look very different depending on what segment or quadrant that they are in, what advantage typically they're trying to gain. But overall, this is the process that we walk them through step by step from the beginning through as long as they're a member. I mentioned that the Chamber has been around since 1903. It is a fact that several members have been members with us since that very year. One of them is a flower shop that's here downtown, which is really fun. So as you can see, you know, not every company can say they've had the same customer for more than 100 years, but when that happens and when we can retain customers for that long, it certainly makes for a great story and a really good feel good. So the bottom line in this customer best practices continuum is that it's all about assuring that we understand the advantage that our customer, our member, is trying to gain through investment, and that we continue to align all of our resources and touch points with the advantage that every member individually is trying to gain. And so this best practices model is one that we execute for every single member, customized specifically to the quadrant, customer profile, and advantage that they're trying to gain. And that is absolutely critical. So the first step in our customer best practices model is prospecting. I'm sure that many of your organizations have some sort of prospecting or marketing strategy based on who you feel like your best customer is and how you bring them through the front door, if you will. The prospecting process is very specific for the Tulsa Chamber. Before we started our quality journey, we believed that chamber membership was for everyone. Now we take a very different view, because if we cannot truly help a company gain an advantage through one of those 4 ways that I mentioned earlier, chamber membership truly is not a good fit, because ultimately that customer won't be satisfied with what we have to offer. And so our prospecting process starts at the very core with understanding that advantage that they are trying to gain. In addition, we also look at some demographic information that we feel like might help them help assure that we've got a potential good customer. One of those things is company size. Typically, a company won't enjoy their chamber experience very much if they have less than 5 employees. So that's certainly a baseline. We also have prospecting thresholds at 26 employees and 100 employees or above. The needs of those businesses, believe it or not, align very congruently with the number of employees they have versus what quadrant they're typically in. Typically, larger companies tend to be more transformational. 100 employee companies tend to understand the bigger picture and are ready to engage in the bigger picture. Companies with less than 100 employees tend to be more focused on keeping their doors open and growing and making sure that they're going to be around for the next 5 to 10, 15 years and beyond. So that can truly be a clue even before we engage with the customer personally, where they may fall on our in our quadrant system. We also focus very specifically on industries. As many of your communities probably do, you probably have some concentrations of industry in your communities that have been cultivated over time, maybe because of geography, or maybe a headquarter company that draws other companies like it to your region. For example, you know, North Carolina is certainly a banking hub. Here in Tulsa, it's very oil and gas prevalent. And we also have a great core of manufacturing, because we have some great logistics opportunities here, being in the middle of the country. So we have very specific targeted industries that we focus on as also a core of identifying best potential customers. I mentioned energy, Healthcare also is another one for us, being at the center of the country. We also have Cancer Treatment Centers of America here as and some children's hospitals as an example, and aerospace and defense being in the center of the country, close to Wichita, and an American Airlines hub is very important to us. So now that I've given you a little bit of an overview of the types of things we look at when we're prospecting, we engage in a prospecting and cultivation process that leverages what we call SPIN methodology. Now, if you're in sales, this is something that it will not be new to you. It's certainly an old and solid method, but the core of the SPIN methodology is asking questions. Sometimes chamber professionals are really good at talking about themselves, talking about the community, talking about the great things that chambers of commerce do. But what we don't do is ask enough questions about our prospects' businesses to see if we can truly gain them an advantage through membership. So the SPIN methodology is an acronym that allows us to prospect our customers by asking situation questions, demographic questions, questions that might give us just a baseline or help confirm things that we may already think we know based on our research, like how many employees do you have? Tell me about your industry. What gains you an advantage in the marketplace? Are you satisfied with your current visibility and marketing efforts? We also then transition into problem questions. You know, like how difficult is it for you to retain and recruit quality employees? You know, do you have some policy issues out there on the horizon that are a concern for you? How they answer those questions truly helps us understand if they're transactional or transformational, and if they don't identify any problems and everything's going really well, you know, are they a company that's not necessarily trying to solve a problem, but maybe they're trying to lean in and give back to the community and truly engage. So there's none of the answers to the questions are wrong or right. We're not leading people with questions. We're not manipulating a situation. We're truly trying to understand the needs of a business. Implication and needs payoff is where the rubber meets the road. It's great for a company to have problems, but if there's no implication or sense of urgency to that business solving those problems, it may not be a good fit with chamber membership. It's kind of like going to the gym. Like if you know you want to lose 15 pounds, but you have no interest in actually working out, a gym membership is going to be a terrible investment for you. And I know we've all made that mistake. So implication truly gets to the heart and the root of the problem. Like if you can't find the workers that you need to expand, what's the implication for your business here in Tulsa? You know, does your organization have a future here? Are your competitors recruiting and retaining talent better than you? Tell me about that. And then needs payoff is how we demonstrate what the chamber does that aligns with the problems and the implications that they've identified. Sometimes we have a very strong case for investment and engagement with the company. And sometimes we have to admittedly say, you know, based on what you've told me, I'm not sure that chamber membership is a great fit for you, but we could make a few recommendations of elsewhere that you might look. So this process truly allows us in the prospecting phase to tell customers that tell prospects that it may not be a good fit. It truly gives us freedom in keeping the business front of mind and making sure that when we make a membership recommendation, it's going to lend itself to a satisfied member in the first place. So the prospecting process is very, very important to us because we don't want to fill the funnel with customers that are going to have a propensity to be unsatisfied. So through that process that I mentioned, you know, prospecting and cultivation is certainly part of that process when we're talking about asking these questions. The cultivation process really just gets into the nitty-gritty of what those investments could look like. Okay, well, you know, what do you want to invest in at the chamber in order to best achieve the results that you're trying to achieve? You know, if engaging with government affairs and working on policy is really the needs payoff for them, you know, we're going to work with them on an investment package that's going to put those dollars in a place and put those members in a position to best influence that. So that cultivation process is really where we customize solutions based on what the chamber offers. And to give you a little bit more of an understanding of our sales process, this is our flow chart here for our sales process. You see engagement and building rapport, typically through that spin process. You can see that, we're planning for the questions in advance. We're asking those questions. We're investigating. All of this is done for the most part over the phone. We are calling the decision maker, we're chatting with the CEO, we're asking very intentional questions, and we may do a scheduled follow-up phone call or presentation in person if it warrants it based on our investigation process. And as I mentioned, at the tail end of our cultivation process, we're demonstrating that value, we're aligning that value to the investments they may be interested in making, and then of course getting that commitment and closing the sale. So now that we've talked through the prospecting process and the cultivation process, and you've seen how those spin questions are pivotal and how we use the quadrant system to best identify where they fit as a potential customer, the rest of this continuum is truly at the point of onboarding all the way through the member life cycle. So there are several things that are really important about the onboarding process. Let's say that I've just brought on a new member. So here are the steps that we're going to follow. In year one, we're focused on engagement. We know before every member joins exactly what quadrant they're in, what customer segment that they've identified as, and what their goals are based on the advantage they're trying to gain. We leverage that information in our database every time we're reaching out to that company or interfacing with that company. We're checking in with them on the goals that they lined out during the prospecting and cultivation process. It's absolutely key. As we focus on engagement, as we onboard and go through year one of our partnership, that means we're calling them every few weeks. Literally every member is called at week 3, week 5, week 8 of our partnership, and week 12, and so on, to assure, especially in those initial weeks, that we've met their expectations and that we make sure that in the future we're continuing to meet their expectations. For example, if one of their goals was to meet a specific legislator and there's a breakfast coming up 2 weeks from now, we need to make sure that we're connecting those dots for them, because any new engagement, any new customer is going to feel that sense of insecurity and, okay, how do I navigate this? So it's our job to make sure from a sales perspective that we help them do that. We never want them to hear from us just when it's time to pay again, based on the feedback that we got several years ago. So the conversations when we touch base are really not about investment at all. They're about expectations and alignment. So, we say, hey, it's been six months, it's been 9 months since you started with us. Is this still working for you? Are we doing right by your business? But then it also gives us an opportunity to talk more transformationally about the things we've done in the community, regardless of whether or not they've been able to show up to one meeting or commit to one engagement opportunity. It gives us an opportunity to talk to even our most transactional members about the transformational things going on in the community. Hey, did you hear about the company we just recruited to town? Hey, did you hear that the governor was quoted in the paper as saying the chamber was very instrumental in X and Y and Z? So it allows us to plant those seeds to assure that wherever our customer is now, they can transform and grow into a transformational member in the future, which, as you saw from that triangle I presented early on, or, in that quadrant grid, is where most of our investment comes from. So just like you might in your customer engagement process, we're truly looking at moves management, moves as in MOVES. So we want a customer to come in and have a great experience in what they need now, but as their needs evolve over time, we want to see them engage in more transformational ways, because we know that they're going to be a stickier member in the long run. So as you see with year 2 and beyond, we're continuing to engage and reactivate all of our members. And from time to time, we may have the opportunity to upsell or cross-sell them. So, as I mentioned, as they become more ingrained and engaged in the organization, they may identify new opportunities, and we can help them in those processes as well. And we've seen over time members invest and engage as one customer segment, and as they continue to grow and their business needs continue to grow, they evolve into a more transformational member who looks very different in our customer segmentation process than they did maybe seven years ago. And so it's wonderful to see that transformation take place, and their satisfaction scores are reflecting that. So just to recap, our onboarding and engagement process truly align on these very specific, measurable, tactical things that we do. So every customer segment, for every customer, every time we talk to them, we are validating their customer segment. So, you know, if we're calling a build member and we hear something that sounds a little different than what a build member would typically say, we dig in and ask some questions to make sure that we're truly meeting their needs where they are, or maybe they've evolved or something new is on the table that we need to serve now. As I mentioned, every member comes in with 1 to 3 reasons why they joined. What's that advantage they're trying to gain? And so in our database, and every time we touch base with them, we are validating and reconfirming those goals and making adjustments. And then I mentioned in year 1 and year 2, we're reaching out to them every few weeks. When a member gets kind of in that 1.5 to 2 year mark, we back off to more quarterly touch points. They kind of understand the flow of the chamber. They understand their membership. They're getting their communications regularly. So quarterly touch points are truly enough to touch base with our more seasoned members and making sure that we're fulfilling our commitments. And then at the end of the day, I've mentioned it before, people join the chamber to gain an advantage, whether that's an advantage for the community or an advantage for their own business. And so we are always asking the question, are your expectations being met? Is what you hope to gain what you're achieving? Let's make adjustments now before an invoice hits your desk. So this is that customer best practices and engagement model. I truly believe it can be transitioned and leveraged for lots of different businesses, certainly lots of different nonprofits. And it's been very, very helpful for us to be able to identify those steps and to truly take every single one of our members through this process in every month and every year of their engagement with us. So why do we care? We as an organization, of course, our members are our customers. Here in resource development, which is my role, it's all about raising dollars. So the KPIs, or the 3 ways that my division in sales measures our success, is of course in revenue, but also in member retention and member satisfaction. So member satisfaction goes without saying. You know, you measure your member satisfaction and you make adjustments based off of that. Member retention might be a little less familiar to some of you. That's truly how we measure engagement here at the Chamber, because as I mentioned, we have 4 customer segments. So not all of them think showing up to an event is the best way to access their Chamber partnership. So if you just measured member engagement on attendance, for example, or maybe, you know, frequency of purchase, things of that nature, it's not truly going to capture the whole picture. So we believe that at the core, members are engaged if they continue to renew their membership year over year with us. So that's why one of our key KPIs is member retention. Okay, so revenue first. As I mentioned, in 2012, when we started our quality journey, we were at about $12 million. As you can see, as of the end of 2018, we've continued to grow our revenue. That's important, not just because, you know, our nonprofit wants to be large and one of the largest chambers in the country. We truly are competing region to region against other communities. I mentioned that our product was Tulsa. So, you know, who are our competitors? Our competitors are other regions. So Dallas, Oklahoma City, Fort Worth, Indianapolis, Atlanta, all of the cities that are drawing people and events and businesses to their regions because of the assets and the prosperity that they provide and the quality of life that they provide, those are our competitors. So it's very important that we're able to compete dollar for dollar and assure that we're investing in the programs and in the community in a way that's going to drive prosperity and growth and elevate our profile among cities that we want to compete against. Member retention, as I mentioned. So I slapped this really tacky graphic up to the right here for 2019 because I haven't yet updated this slide. But what this shows you is how our member retention has been tracking over time. And I have good news to share that in 2019, we hit an 88% retention rate of all members, which is the highest in Tulsa Chamber history, and it's certainly higher than our comparative goal. So for the first year, we've seen truly this new customer segmentation and retention and engagement process pay off in great ways for us. So what this chart shows you is that we've seen our retention rate steadily drive up over time. The chamber is in chamber green, and then you see some of our competitive set here. So we're part of the National Association, ACCE, and so you see that dark gray line there, and then you see we are also part of the Western Association of Chamber of Commerce Professionals, or WACE, and so you're able to see that how our retention is tracking there. Truly 85% is the gold standard. We're wanting to make it to 90 to be Baldrige worthy, and we are well on our way with 88%. And then the last thing I'll mention is member satisfaction. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with the Net Promoter Index score, and when you ask people, hey, would you recommend this to a friend? If they give you a 9 or 10, that's a +1. If they give you a 7 or 8, it's kind of a neutral, and anything 6 or below is truly a negative. Like, no, they might say they will, but they're really not interested in recommending this product or service to a friend. So that's kind of the basis of the Net Promoter Index score. We have used this for several years because we know that it's a national indicator of satisfaction among all types of businesses. Obviously, best in class is companies like Ritz-Carlton at 83% or higher. Worst in class with a -41 is probably like your insurance company or your cell phone company. But the Tulsa Chamber sits squarely at 50% NPI score, which is above the 75th percentile for all businesses nationwide, which we're very, very proud of. And so as you see from a chamber perspective, we are tracking, we're at 50%, which is excellent for our Western Association. The best chamber in the West has a 70% NPI score, so we're working toward that. As you can see from 2005 and onward, our NPI score has elevated substantially. And so with this process, we truly believe that we're going to continue to march toward that 70% and be world-class from our Western Association peers. And then, of course, 83% like Ritz-Carlton would be fabulous. We'll continue to work toward that. This last year, 2019, this is how our NPI score played out with our members. We had 12% of our members that were detractors and gave us a 6 or less, and then 62% that were truly promoters at a 9 or a 10. So I wanted to show you that specifically for us, how we got to that 50% score for 2019. I also wanted to show you very quickly how it's progressed over time overall. As I mentioned, we've steadily increased to 50%, which is wonderful. But this is also very interesting, this next slide here. As I mentioned 3 years ago, we started segmenting our customers into motivations or quadrants. And so now we can assess satisfaction by quadrant. And as you can see, we had a bit of a problem we identified for the very first time in 2017. Our access members, which are some of our least engaged, but still invest a considerable amount of dollars with us. We're very disengaged or very unsatisfied at 5%. And just in this last 2 years, we've been able to increase their satisfaction score to 38%. One of our next goals is to make sure that we can at least get them to 50%, which would be in the same ballpark as our other quadrants. But if we had not done this membership satisfaction or membership engagement segmentation, if we had not segmented our customers into quadrants or advantages, we would have never identified this issue. So finally, the reason why we are measuring success in these ways, why we're growing revenue and gaining membership satisfaction and engagement, is that the members in our region are our customers. And we know that the more satisfied and the more invested they are in our chamber, the more great things that are going to happen for their businesses and for our community. So these are just a few images I'll leave you with. Is when companies succeed, the community thrives, and the chamber is blessed to be part of the larger story that Tulsa is writing. And we are very, very pleased to be on a quality journey that we know will have an impact for our region for years to come. So that is the end of my formal presentation. If you have any questions about what we chatted about today, it looks like we have a little bit of time.
Okay, thank you very much, Allison, for sharing your best practices. As a reminder, if you have questions, you can either type them in the question box within the control panel, or you can raise your hand, and we can read the question to Allison, and she'll answer it for you. So we'll just pause for a minute to see if anyone has any questions. While we're doing that, I'll just make a couple comments. Allison, I love the depiction of your customer best practice continuum. It really is, it's simple, but it also has impact. So I really like that diagram.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're very proud of it. And what we're more proud of is that we actually live it out day to day. So it feels really good when you can put something on paper that truly has an impact for your organization.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of it, is that because it's somewhat simple and easy to look at, it is easier to implement then, and which is exactly what you're doing. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions. And so, oh, wait, I knew that would happen as soon as I said we don't have any questions. Allison, could you talk about your partnership with, and this is from one of our TPE members, as far as with your local TPE organization, which would be the Oklahoma Quality Foundation, you know, what your relationship is with them, and then do you know the number of applicants that your state program has?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So to the last question about number of applicants, Carrie Hill, who is our executive director, also a former Mesa employee, would not be pleased if I got the number wrong. So I can't confirm how many applicants we have from year to year, but I can tell you from the seat I sit in, typically how many applicants are awarded from year to year. We typically have 1 or 2 awardees in each of our categories. We have several categories of awards that kind of step up the ranks at the state level to prepare a company for a Baldrige exam. Those are commitment, achievement, and excellence. Every year there's typically 1, maybe 2 companies that get to that achievement level, either that commitment level, achievement level, or excellence level. And I would say that maybe between 6 and 12 applicants apply a year in different categories, whether they be healthcare or nonprofit. We are in aggressive growth mode right now with Oklahoma Quality, and Carrie has made very specific reaches to different entities within the community to encourage them to apply, and has been very very helpful in getting them in on the ground floor to realize that it's not a heavy lift to get that application in, maybe not as much as people think. So we're definitely in growth mode and want to see more and more companies apply in the future. My role with Oklahoma Quality is as a board member. I started that affiliation probably halfway through the Chamber's quality journey, maybe starting in around 2014 or so. My role is truly part of that recruitment effort. Because I'm with the Tulsa Chamber, I do have a line of sight to businesses who might be ready to commit to a quality journey based on where they are in their business life cycle. So it's my job to help identify companies who might be ready for that process, or might benefit from the recognition that a quality award might afford them. So that's typically where I sit, is in the recruitment role.
Great. Thank you very much, Allison, for that response. And it sounds like you're doing some great growth in Oklahoma, which I like to hear. Okay, so our next third Thursday webinar will be on March 19th at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. And the topic is engaging your workforce to drive high performance, high work environment. And we are fortunate to have Deb Adders, who is the Vice President of Patient Care Services and the Chief Nursing Officer for Yuma Regional Medical Center. So we hope you can join us. I will be sending mailings out with the link to register for that webinar. Another couple things I want to share with you is if you look in your control panel under the handout area, there is a PDF of Allison's presentation that she made today. So if you'd like to download that so you have access to her slides, please do so. And also we have recorded this webinar, and we will have a recording available in our Vimeo library for you to access. Thank you on behalf of Quality New Mexico, Oklahoma Quality, SWAY, and TPE. If you are interested in starting your Baldrige journey and you're with one of these programs, these are the contact people for you to reach out to. And we appreciate you joining us for an hour of your day today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you and goodbye.